Hello, welcome to In Love. Here we talk about how living daily in the reality of God's love keeps us on that transformation path that we desire to stay on, meaning that living from a place of understanding of God's love for me and my doing everything that I do from that place of knowing His love for me and also expressing my love for Him keeps me in alignment with Him as He matures me into that image that He created me to be. I'm Joy of My Whole. Welcome to episode 8. Today's topic is letting go in love. I want to tell you a story. One day I was having dinner and every other person was in different parts of the house. My sisters were in the kitchen, my brother was with me in the sitting room, and I was the only one eating at the time because every other person was waiting for a fresh meal, and I decided to have what was already available. I was hungry and I didn't want to wait, and it was already getting late. So while I was eating, my sister came about the house with a snack in her hand and she was sharing with everybody. She shared with my older sister in the kitchen and then came to the sitting room and walked past me with the snack and went straight to my brother. Of course, he's older, so it was expected. But then I don't know why the moment just it caught my attention because I could see as she walked towards me that there was this desire for her to share what she had in her hand with me. But then, as she got close to me, I could sense the hesitation as well. Then I could see when the decision changed from that hesitation to her actually deciding to move on with the snack. And it was amusing, and I did not know at that time why it caught my attention, but it just did. I kind of, how it's happening at normal speed, but for some reason, it kind of slowed down a bit for me to slow down enough to catch my attention. So while I was, just going over how amusing the whole thing was in my head and just wondering why I was able to pick that moment, I just perceived the Lord telling me, yes, Joy, that's it. Do not expect to receive something new from me when you're still holding the old thing in your hand. You're still eating what you have in your mouth, and your mind is still occupied with the thoughts that you had before. I finished with my meal and then I went to meet my sisters in the kitchen, and I've been learning to not jump to conclusions, because of what I assume. Assumption is never the right route to take. So I decided to, investigate and find out if my perception about the whole situation was right. So I jokingly protested about how I didn't get any snack. And then she told me it was because she saw me eating. I already had something in my hand. My hands were full, my mouth was full, I was eating, and of course it didn't make sense for her to um or she didn't deem me fit to give me when I already had something I was eating, and of course the combination would be weird. So I told her I was joking that I did observe that she wanted to give, I perceived that she wanted to give me, and I was just joking about it that I actually learned something from that experience. That's why I brought it up so I could share what I learned. And before I even went on to share what I learned, my other sister was like, that's how it is with God. When our hands are full, let's not expect to be able to receive what He has, because even you can't have something in your hand and then still expect to receive something. Where are you going to put the new thing that you're receiving, right? And she was like, for her, she was sitting in the kitchen, she didn't have anything in her hands, and the thing that was being passed around came directly to her without her looking for it, without her asking, because she was open, and she and it was easy for her to receive what was coming. But me, I had something, I was busy, preoccupied with what I had going on, you know. So it was easy for that thing to pass by me to someone else who also was open to receive that thing. And then I shared that, yeah, that's actually what I learned. That's what I wanted to share. So it was a moment of or it triggered a moment of reflection for me, because I started to think, just take stock of my life, like, okay, this came on strong and very clear. And for the fact that even before I shared what I learned, that my sister, also highlighted the same thing, for me, it was a message. And I knew that God was calling my attention to something. So I started to take stock of my life. I'm like, okay, what am I holding on to, that I'm yet to let go of? And then, even while I was thinking about it, while I was preparing to, share this, I remembered some time ago when I was praying for an infilling of the Holy Spirit. Like, I was tired of the level that I'd been in, and I just wanted something, new. I wanted a new experience with God, in my walk with God. And I was praying for the infilling of the Holy Spirit, and God told me no. It was so funny. But it wasn't funny then, but every time I think about it, I don't know why it amuses me. Like, it was a clear no. And then he led me to Luke 5, verse 38, where Jesus was telling the disciples, and he said, new wine must be put in new wineskin. He said, you cannot put old wine in new wineskin, but new wine must be put in new wineskin, and both are preserved, meaning that we cannot mix the old with the new. If you want something new, then you have to be ready to let go of the old. So that's what this reminded me of. And for me, my whole process of taking stock and trying to find out what it was that I was still holding on to, I found out that there's something that I thought I had let go of. And of course, I'm not out here saying everything I've been holding on to, I let go. But on the level where I am, and with what God has revealed to me, according to what He has proposed to do, He pointed out something that I actually thought I had let go of, but apparently it seemed like I was still holding on to it like this, because every time it came to mind, I'll just be like, but God, what if, and then he gives me clarity or reminds me of something he has said, and then I move on, and then I encounter something again, and I kind of find myself going back to to that thing, and just wondering if I could mix that thing with this new thing. And so yeah, I just asked God for grace, and I repented, and I just obtained grace to let go and really let go of that thing. And truly, the moment I got to that point of like, okay, God, I'm releasing this thing finally by your grace and with your help. And by your grace, I don't want to keep going back and wondering if, you know, there's something that we could do with that thing you're asking me to let go of. The moment I did that, it was like my eyes opened to see a side of this new thing that I did not see before. Because the thing with, God telling us to let go of the old and embrace the new thing He's doing is that we're used to the old, we're used to what we know, we're familiar with it. So when He's calling you onto something new, there's that fear of, this is new territory. I'm not used to this. Everything is different. I even feel different, how am I going to cope in this new thing? So those thoughts are kind of, or part of the things that makes us want to still hold on to what we know. But like in my experience, as I was able to release, that thing fully to God, I began to see sides of this new thing that I did not know existed before. And interestingly, I began to see how, you know, it wasn't that He was removing me from something, and like I began to see that it wasn't completely different, in the sense that the purpose is still the same. I'm just, I have just been given the same, not the same thing. I wanted to say the same thing in a different package, but not really like that. But the end game, and I believe that should be like the goal and desire for everybody, is the purpose, right? So to see that in this new thing, the purpose is not different from what I thought it was before, but instead I'm even coming to a place where I'm more aligned with what the purpose has always been, and I'm coming to a place of better understanding of what the purpose has always been. So now, embracing this new thing, every time I think about it, and I'm thanking God for it, even in the midst of all the unknowns and all the things I'm yet to know, all the things that seem like they are, they might be a bit daunting. Every time I think about it, and I get excited about the new things that are coming, or the new thing that God is doing, I find out that I am more, I find faith rising in me to continue to move on in this direction of the new that God has brought. And I find myself even getting drawn deeper into this new thing, as opposed to how I would, quickly look back on what I let go of. Now I find myself running towards this new thing and embracing it even more, because I was able to allow God to help me let go of that old thing. So the question for us today is, what do I have in my hand that God has asked me to let go of? What do I have in my mind? What kind of thoughts am I thinking that are contrary to what God has said about me? What kind of words am I speaking that are contrary to what God has written concerning me? Because when we think of letting go, we think of, okay, letting go of people that hurt us. We think of letting go of the past, but we don't, bring it down to these things that we tend to overlook, with the kind of thoughts we are thinking, the kind of words we are speaking, the kind of things that we are bringing into our environment. All of those things count as well. If we want the new that God is doing, then it has to come, start with our mind, renewing our mind, letting go of the things that do not serve where God is taking us or what God is doing, those things that do not align with God's purpose for us as He has revealed to us. All of those things count as well. One thing about letting go is, for me, I found that when I look at, this invitation to obedience, letting go of whatever it is God is asking me to let go of, when I see it more like an opportunity to receive something new from God rather than me sacrificing, it helps me. Because at the end of the day, I'm coming to the realization every day, as God helps me, it gets clearer that I am not my own. I don't belong to myself, and everything I have does not belong to me. So where then is the sacrifice? Because God owns me, right? He owns me. I belong to Him. So what am I sacrificing? So my prayer every day is, God, whatever it is that you ask me to release, let me not even see it as I'm sacrificing this thing or I'm sacrificing to you, because I belong to you. Let me just simply, by your grace, walk in obedience and, you know, allow this thing to go. Because if you request for something that I thought was serving a purpose, and you're saying, okay, it's time for this chapter to close, I'm opening another chapter, then it's a good thing. No matter how it looks, it's a good thing, because now this is an opportunity for me to be upgraded in a way that I cannot even imagine, in a way that supersedes every imagination or every prayer, every thought that I would have ever made. When we look at scripture and we see people that God walked with, we see that everybody has to come to that point where God would require you to let go of something. But the beautiful thing is, every time God asks you to let go of something, whether He gives you back that thing or He gives you something new, you stand to benefit. It's a blessing, because if He gives you back that thing, I bet you, as surely as God lives and as surely as God does not repeat anything, What God does is always good. If God asks you to give him something and you give it to him and he gives you back that thing, I assure you that what he has given you is not the exact thing you gave to him. It will be million times better than what you gave to him. For example, we see Moses' example. God told him to, drop his staff. And Moses released the staff and dropped it. Then it turned to a snake. And then when he picked it up, it turned back into a staff. The moment Moses released that staff and dropped it, it ceased to be an ordinary shepherd's staff. It then turned into, the instrument that God used to wrought mighty miracles through Moses, right? And then let's even look at our father of faith, our patriarch, Abraham. When God told him to sacrifice Isaac, the moment he placed Isaac on that altar, Isaac ceased to be just Isaac. God accepted Isaac as the sacrifice. God accepted the sacrifice. And then when God told him not to, proceed with the physical aspect of offering the sacrifice, which would have, involved killing Isaac, and then God showed him the ram and gave Isaac back to him. The Isaac God gave back to Abraham was not the same one that Abraham placed on the altar. Abraham placed the son that he loved on the altar, and God gave him back the son that he promised he would give him, the one through whom the multitudes that he showed Abraham that would be like the stars would come, the one who would continue what God has started with Abraham 2 generations to come. So every time God asks us to release something to him, if he's going to give us that thing, it's not the same, it's better than we ever thought it would be. If he's going to give us something entirely different, then even better. It doesn't matter how it looks from the beginning. Anything new will always seem, daunting. You face some discomforts with trying to adjust to the new reality or the new experiences or whatever it is. But we should not focus on how we were used to what we had, because if we keep looking back, we'll miss out on the thing that God is doing. Last week we talked about in Isaiah 43, verse 18 and 19, where God told us, he said, forget the former things and don't consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Don't you see it? Don't you perceive it? He said, I will even make a way in the wilderness and make streams to spring up in the desert. So that's how it works. If we want something new, we need to be willing to let go of the old. That's a reminder for us today to analyze ourselves and, search deeply. What has God asked me to let go of that I'm still holding on to because it's all I know? Because we are scared to start afresh. Because I don't know how this is going to play out. I've given my time and energy and years of experience and sweat and whatever it is I want to say. I've given it to this thing that now to let go is a problem, because I don't even know if I have it in me to start something new again. But let's always remember that God's call to something else other than what we've known is an upgrade, it's a promotion, it's an opportunity for us to experience God in a way that we've not experienced him before. And I believe that's the desire that we all have, to get to know God more and more each day. And as we open ourselves to him in obedience, it becomes our reality. We get to see him in a way that we never even thought we would see him. And it would only happen as we say yes and allow him to work obedience in us. So that's it for today. Thank you for stopping by. I believe this has blessed you. Please do share with someone, and do not forget to return for some more good food next week. Stay blessed and thrive gracefully.